a great honor to be here and introducing Sonia Luong to you and launching her memoir, The Girl Who Dreamed, a Hong Kong memoir of triumph against the odds. As Holly mentioned, she's a Hong Kong-based poet and writer. She's won awards for both her poetry and her prose, including Worldview 2023, a UK-based annual global poetry competition, and also Hong Kong's top story in 2015 and 2016. Her work has appeared in literary journals and anthologies across the world. Holly mentioned Sonia's debut work, which is a collection of poetry, both in English and Chinese, called Don't Cry Phoenix. It also includes a CD of 10 original songs recorded in Taiwan in 2020. This is her second book, The Girl Who Dreamed, a Hong Kong memoir of triumph against the odds. So I met Sonia a few weeks ago at FCC, but I met her first through this memoir. And I was incredibly moved, so much so that when Sonia and I met, we both burst into tears. I think what struck me about her memoir was this theme of severed belonging. And it resonated with me. I'm also a child of immigrants, and I think it will resonate with all readers of her book. I think that this idea of severed belonging, so many of us, and probably some of you, when you have this feeling, especially as a young person, you seek refuge in books, as you did, Sonia, when you were young. But what I'd like to also start us off with is this idea of storytelling and storytelling's gift to humanity. It certainly linked me with you, Sonia, through your work. Mm-hmm. And I also wanted to say that, you know, this is not a memoir that is anything having to do with self-pity or misery. This is a story of triumph, and that's why it's in the title.
Yes. Thank you, Anna, for the lovely introduction, and thanks everyone for coming. Yeah. This still feels like a dream. Pinch me. Because some of you know that it took me 10 years to write and get it published. And as we speak, my publisher just walked in.
Look here. Look over there.
Because it might not be. I need to thank him next. So he have been putting tremendous effort to getting it published on time for this event. Just hot off the press this Tuesday. Yeah, so we make it to the Bokassin pull-up shop at the Fringe. I'm really grateful. Thank you. A round of applause for Pete, please. Thank you so much.
Sonia wanted me to tell all of you that she started learning English at age 12, right? Yeah. You didn't speak one word of English, and so she says she is not comfortable being interviewed in English. And I said, you wrote a book in English, lady.
I say underground.
Yeah. So one thing I would like to address is that Sonia's life as a girl was marked by an act of sexual violence. And this is something that's put very bluntly on the back jacket of the book when you pick up a copy. And one thing I want to say about this is that Sonia did not let this crime, stop her. And her story is one of getting no help, having no resources, having so many things against her, and having to heal herself, support herself, and actualize herself with no support. She didn't get this from her family, she didn't get this from her community. In fact, you'll find in this book that nearly everything worked against her, but she persevered. And we're so happy that she's launching her book today. So I would like Sonia to take us back to where this all started and read the opening of her memoir. It's a passage called Diamond Hill.
So this is just the opening scene of the book. Diamond Hill. I crossed the border and entered Hong Kong when I was 12 in June 1986. Escorted by an uncle from my father Leung's clan, my younger sister, who is here today, thank you. My younger sister and I took the overnight bus from Nan'an County in China's Fujian province to Shenzhen. We then passed through Luowu control point and embarked on a Kowloon-bound train to reunite with our parents, elder sister and elder brother, who had come to Hong Kong 2.5 years earlier. Uncle Leung let us off at the Diamond Hill station. When we reached the street level, the view in front stunned me. Low, grey sheet metal huts stuck together eerily, like something out of a war movie back in the 50s. How could this be Hong Kong, every Mainlander's dreamland? Maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me. Gloomy eateries and rackety stores, mostly operated by older women, sold clothes, cooking utensils, condiments, meat, fruit and vegetables, and then there are playground, an irregular shaped space with an old bumpy concrete table tennis table. That was all. We head into a labyrinth of dark, narrow, winding alleys. Once inside the maze with the huts closing in, the sewage running in half-open drains next to the paths, the smell hit me. The stench was dense, like a tangible line in space. The weight of urine, feces, shower cockroaches, and rotten rugs make up its density. It was useless to breathe carefully. The smell was pungent and thick. It replaced the air. A hot substitute filled my lungs, shipped into my blood, and made me its creature. Once I took a deep breath, I was no longer an air breather. I metamorphosed into another species.
Thank you for that, Sonia. So, I'm wondering why you chose to write a memoir. Because a lot of things that have happened to you, you could have put it in a novel,
Yeah.
but a memoir is in a very immediate genre of writing.
So a very wise psychologist friend who is also here today, thank you, reminded me some time ago that I need to own up my success. Because for wounded people like us, we never feel enough. And there's a hole inside us where we always have to fill it up with our constant, push and to get our sense of worthiness, back. And so I felt that I need to own up my story and to give credit to my younger self. I think only self-validation can refill that hole within me, And also that in year 2009, I visited Hope Destitute Children's Center, and the 6 girls I helped to finish secondary school, I met them for the first time, and they greet me formally, but stay in a distance. But after the formal ceremony over, then I went to their dormitory and sat down in a circle with them. And then I told them my story, and they came close to me. So it was then and there. I saw the beautiful lights in the girls' eyes, and I felt the super connective power of storytelling, right? And also, like, people say that fiction, real life is stranger than fiction. So that's certainly true in my case, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, how can a 15-year-old can get the got the visa, Taiwanese visa, all by herself? And then she was so lucky she met 2 very kind-hearted policemen, and and then on and on. And she went for interview as a cashier, and then she got a job as a F&B cost control assistant, whatever that is. Yeah, she didn't have an idea at that time. And so, and also, that, as you point out, that I can mention in the book that instead of, so I could have met like people like Ai, but I met the vice president of the student union, and he helped me through. So just so like all these coincidences. I mean, it's just so weird that if I put it in a fiction, it won't be. Yeah, it would be unbelievable. And then if a novel relies so heavily on coincidences, then it just won't work.
Great. Speaking of your younger self, Sonia, please tell us about the cover of your book and what it means to you. I know that it calls back to your family, who are so much part of your story, but it's such a striking image.
Yeah, thank you. So yes, yeah, as Asians, I think we can't really sever the bonds with our family, right? Yeah. So
Nope.
no, yeah. So after I signed the book contract with P, I went to have lunch in Mom's house, and we had lunch. After the meal, we start talking, and we went through some old photos, and this one just jumped out like out of nowhere. I didn't know its existence before, and so thinking back, then it must have been taken by my father, because it should be when I was 13, and after 1 year after arriving in Hong Kong, we had this family outing, because my parents, they both work long hours. My father was a doctor and my mother was a teacher in China, but because it was at that time still British colony, so the certificate wasn't recognized. So they worked in the factory like 6 days a week, 10, 12 hours a day. So rarely we got to a family outing, and so this was one that when I was 13, and we went to Hu Pao Villa, now no longer in Hong Kong Island, but in Singapore. Yeah, and then and my father okay, and in the memoir I mentioned that my father installed a little night bulb above my bed because I had trouble sleeping when I was a kid, and then so I saw this is a bigger night bulb that my father gifted me, sending me his blessing.
So in your memoir, Sonia, pieces of poetry are woven throughout the narrative. And in fact, sometimes your prose actually reads like poetry. Was this a choice on your part?
Oh, yeah, I think so. Yeah, because I think so I wrote that the Don't Cry Phoenix, as we mentioned earlier, alongside The Girl Who Dreamed, because sometimes it got too difficult to write another descriptive passage. Yeah, so I turned to poetry for help. And so I started using, this part get a little bit technical, so I better refer to the notes. So I started using poetic devices in my prose writing. So for example, I implemented poetic diction, sounds, meanings, and rhythms to construct the language, my operation system. By using alliterations, simile, personification, allusion, and metaphor, I established the feeling and atmosphere of my prose. And also I use show, don't tell quite a bit. The 15-year-old broken self couldn't tell, so the mature writer self provide all the details to the reader to show them how the girl felt.
I think it's really important what you just said. Any writer at any stage of their career is always told show, don't tell.
Yeah.
And I think before you read the next passage from your memoir, I would really like to highlight this idea of not being able to tell. Because Sonia, when I met you, you had expressed to me that sometimes when talking about your memoir, an interviewer would say, why didn't you just tell your parents? Why didn't you just tell your parents about the assault? And I think that why somebody would ask that is that it makes sense in our context, in 2024, in our world. 40 years ago, as an immigrant, as part of an immigrant family from mainland China, it would have made no sense at all. You couldn't even bring up this kind of language, right? You wouldn't have even been able to tell your parents, even say these words in their presence. Right, very, very risky, right? And I think that you understood as a young woman that you would not have been understood. And so in this next passage that Sonia is about to read, if I could put it in a little bit of context for you, it is 1 year after the sexual assault. Sonia is 15, and she is trying through writing of a diary to start to heal, to start to put these pieces together. The diary is found, and for Sonia, there is no way to continue to live at home with her family or in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
But she finds resilience during an unusual encounter. This passage is called Moon in a Dog's Eye.
So this passage is a bit longer. Yeah. The moon in a dog's eye. The summer of 1990 came, closing the first year of my secondary school life. The once skylit room in my heart had disappeared. The hopeful, hardworking me felt like 9 years away. Instead, a dark, cold cell captured my thoughts and feelings. I couldn't reach out. I couldn't cry. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't dream anymore. One night, in the wee hours, I gazed at the moonlight that slid gracefully through the rusty iron gate of our hut. Her gentle light transformed the entrance and the steps beyond it, giving them a magical glow. The moon's sense of serenity arose me. It generated an urge in me to join her in the peaceful world out there beneath its gleam. The rest of my family was sound asleep. Creeping down from my upper bunk bed, I quietly unlocked the gate and walked away. My flip-flops were stardust, carrying me away from our home. Weaving through the narrow, winding paths of our slum, I hurried toward a nearby construction site at Tats Klang Tunnel in Diamond Hill. I needed space, a quiet place where I could hear my breath. Light from distant street lamps and high-rises cast a nebulous luminance over the deserted construction site. Rubble, planks, debris, and equipment lay all around in the cavernous gloom. Piles of sand and ragged holes appeared here and there. A few hard hat and worn-out black rubber boots sat near the silent machines and graying dumpsters. Cigarette butts littered the bulldozed earth. Some distance away, a car roared by and interrupted the silence. Another car followed. The air was heavily fatigued with the workers' remaining sweat and the odors of the debris. The moonlight construction site felt like a lake, still and serene in the moonlight. I slipped out of my flip-flops and wrinkled my toes in the cold dust, as if deep in the soft lake water. A sense of calmness stole over me. I breathed deeply, drawing in the cold night air. A gusty wind passed through, safety vests dangling from a hawk swung in the breeze. The wind sliced right through my flesh to the bone, leaving an empty chill in its wake. Skipping over dark holes, climbing into a clean cabin, descending a slope, and kicking at some empty cans, I wandered around the site. Then I found myself humming the song from a singing contest in Nanyang with the primary school vice headmaster playing erhu. Over the blue sky, there are silvery streams, the Milky Way. The melancholy sound of erhu echoed in my head. Worries dissolved into the tune. The sorrows that I have been carrying mellowed, and their weight lifted. I breathed. Tender was the wind's caress. A feathery touch upon the bare skin of my arm. I walked and jogged away from the ravaged earth until my legs were sore and my adrenaline had subsided. At the exit of the catchment channel, I found a grass patch and sat on it, regaining my composure. Tall bushes sealed me. Drawing up my knees and wrapping my arms around them, I leaned back on the wall. The moon was complete, clear, and close. I gazed at the full moon and discovered that I could dream again. I dreamed that I'd return to my unscarred whole self. The sound of my breath showered me, soothed me. I rested my head on my kneecaps. My eyelids grew heavier and heavier. Just before I drifted off, a thing appeared. A black wolf-like dog stood in front of me. Its bones popped out of its fangs. From 10 feet away, the dog stared at me with its wide, gleaming eyes. The eyes almost bulged out of its skull, and when those eyes focused upon me, they turned livid. "Do you know what I do to little girls?" challenged those dark eyes. Slowly, I uncurled and shifted myself into a different position. I placed my hands flat upon the ground, sitting erect, staring back at it. The dog tilted its head sideways, and I saw the moon in its left eye. Neither of us flinched. The moon's sharp light beamed through my brain, advising me to hold my ground. I steadied my gaze. Emboldened, I determined to protect myself and reclaim the dominion of my body. So I raised my head, drew my shoulder blades together, and strengthened my spine. And then I intensified my glowering at the black dog. The sudden extension of my upper body and escalation of my spirit astounded. It cocked its head to the right and cowered slightly, still glaring at me. But its muzzle lowered, and the night of its eye dimmed. It whimpered and slunk away. A few times, it craned its leg to check on me. I kept my posture and met the dog eye to eye. When the dog's tail was entirely out of sight, I fell onto the grass. Cool dew chilled me to the bones. My sweat-drenched body shivered.
Sonia, I wanted to ask, was it cathartic writing a memoir? Your story contains several instances of deep trauma. Has writing helped you to process at all?
Unfortunately, writing writing can't really help you process it. It it will actually re-traumatize you. You can only come to it after you receive some treatment and ready to face it. You need to have a safety net around you, a counselor or a group of friends. Someone to catch you when you fall, and you will fall when you try to write an authentic one. Because you need to re-immerse yourself in the scenes of your past. So because so you feel like you had relived those dark days. Yeah. No tears in the writer, said the poet Robert Frost. No tears in the readers. Yeah. And also writing a memoir is different from autobiography, because in autobiography you sort of tell this happened and then that, but so that is like a horizontal plot line. But in memoir you need to go deeper. You need to delve deep into your psyche. So that is the vertical plot line, and so you need to have both in order to make your memoir come alive. Yeah. Was it cathartic? Yes and no, because it was cathartic in a sense that you sort of take back the narratives. So you feel like a sense of power return to you, and so you can stare down at your past and not be bashed by them. Yeah. So that in that sense is cathartic. But then again, I always had know thyself. Yeah, as what the according to legend was carved into stone at the entrance of Apollo's temple at Delphi in Greece. So we certainly have to know ourselves before we march down memory lane. We're visiting the unpleasant past and confronting old demons. You got to be ready. Yeah.
Sonia, I think what's so interesting about your memoir is that we don't actually see memoirs like this very often. Mm-hmm. We don't see it from a mainland Chinese woman, girl, immigrant to Hong Kong. Why do you think that this is the case?
I think when you can't find yourself in the books you read, you don't think that you are worth writing. And as Virginia Woolf mentioned, to have a room of one's own. So after 20 years of working and saving, I allowed myself to join an MFA creative writing program and to write for 2 years. But like here we are, 10 years later, yeah. And luckily I got it published. But there's no guarantee, no matter how hard you try. So tenacity is the key. And apart from writing another poetry book alongside, I polished each chapter rigorously, make them into standalone pieces, and got them published in the literary journals worldwide. And that kind of, small achievement accumulated, and they empowered me, and to keep knocking on the doors of my publisher, and keep reminding him that maybe I have an audience, and that my book is worth publishing. Yeah.
Yes, on both counts. You have an audience, and your book is very much worth publishing. Your story is one of tenacity and perseverance, for sure.
Yeah. Just to add one more point, So, and because also I came to writing late, when I was 40, so I knew if I put it down at any point, I just wouldn't pick it up again. And so the financial burden and the lack of hope, support, and encouragement, probably prevent a lot more others, less determined ones from from succeeding. Yeah.
One of the things that struck me, Sonia, while reading your memoir was your deep love of Chinese literature and certain works in particular. And unfortunately, you told me there are no good English translations available, so maybe someday you will do that for us. But these works of Chinese literature have been your lifelong touchstones. In good times and in bad, you've referred to them, you've gone back to them. The characters are almost your friends, the way that you express it. Now, given that Chinese is your native language, and you have a great talent for writing in it, why did you choose the challenge of writing in English for your memoir?
So the book Anna Suya mentioned is The Dream of Red Chamber. There's one translation, official one, but I think the beauty of that book is in its language. I did try to write in Chinese at first, but I couldn't get over page 1 because it was just too. The language itself also sounded like just too. It's suffocating. It's just too up close and personal. Yeah, and I think Angus gave me that cognitive space or as cognitive distance I needed to process the story. So that's very important that you need to have that distance, to process, and also. In Chinese, and I'm sure also in your maybe Indian sort of background or culture, we don't really say "I love you" to
to your parents. No.
Yeah, to our parents. Yeah. So even though I mentioned that I had a difficult relationship with my mother in the book, but at the end I say, I love her. So.
One thing you said to me, Sonia, when we met, is that these things happened to me in Chinese.
Yeah.
And to revisit them in Chinese was too immediate for you, which is understandable.
Yeah.
And the achievement is all the more that you have expressed them in English. And you have a sort of phrase that you go back to. In English, we kind of exchange this. In English, it's fortune favors the bold, but in Chinese, it's something a little different.
Yeah, 皇天不負有心人. Yeah, so
The heavens reward
the heavens reward the determined ones. Yeah, so that's the very essential message from my book. Yeah.
I have one final question, and then we'd love to hear from you if you have any questions for Sonia. But Sonia, what is that you hope people will take away after reading your book?
Because this is such an important question, so I really I want to refer to my notes and to get it right. Yeah. So writing a memoir involves sweat, tears, fear, anxiety, doubt, and exasperation. And yet something else emerges, something stronger than all the aforementioned: love. It was profoundly energizing, electrifying, and uplifting to write this memoir. So, The Girl Who Dreamed is a love letter sent from my heart. It is my love song to the marginalized people, the wounded souls, and everyone who cares.
Are there any questions from the audience? Yes, please.
Sonia, were there parts of your life or that phase that were just too painful for you to revisit and they are not in the book? Mm-hmm. Or they were, sometimes we block painful memories that they were just not there, and you feel might have not become part of this book.
I'll just repeat the question briefly so everyone says. The question is were there incidents in your life that were actually too painful to put in the book, that you just didn't want to go there and that you blocked?
No, because I think I wrote the most painful one first. Yeah, and just get them out of the way. Yeah, I think if either you don't do it, or if you do it, you just have to do your best and put the worst out and try to craft in a way that is acceptable. I mean, that is readable for others. I think that's why it took 10 years, because as I mentioned, I polished, not just because I polished each chapter rigorously, not just because I want to get them published, but it's because I really want to get the language and to let you into the scene rather than just hearing the words. Because nowadays, like this kind of brutal, sexual assault, like this became just meaningless. But I really want to bring you into the story and let you see from the girl's point of view. But at the same time, I want to show you that you are in the hands of a mature woman, Yeah, so I think I handle that first before I write the other letter. Or actually, my publisher asked me to write happier scenes because he's afraid it's too, too dark and too difficult. Yeah, so I did I do confront all the demons and get it all in there, and then add in some livelier scenes to make it as a book. Thank you.
Sure, please.
What advice will you give to yourself 10 years ago to write this memoir? Like, if you can come back 10 years ago and you give some advice to yourself to write this memoir.
So the question is, what advice would you give to yourself 10 years ago? At 40, Sonia and I are the same age. What advice would you have given to yourself 10 years ago, knowing what you know now,
Yeah.
10 years later?
Yeah. Do you want to maybe ask some?
Oh yeah, could I take another question?
Yeah, think about it.
Yeah. Any other questions that you'd like to ask? Sure.
So, Sonia, I don't know the story, but did you use real names? And if so, was it difficult to put them down in your writing? Because these were the people involved in your life or in the incidents.
Okay. So, yeah.
The question was about, did you use real names since this is a memoir?
Yeah. Because this one is more direct, so I answer this one first. Yeah. Pseudonyms. I use pseudonyms. Yeah. Pseudonyms. I try not to. So, yeah. I try not to use them and yeah, because not just out of respect, but like, yeah, protective, and also I really didn't want anything to get attention to them, like give them attention. Like even in the book, I just say youngest. Even like I didn't mention my siblings' name because they are well established in Hong Kong, and and it just naming is very powerful. It's right. You put them on spot. And no, the point wasn't to bring them or to, it just, they are part of my story. Too bad, sorry, younger sister. Yeah, but so, it's not what they say, right? But anyway, so, if there's a writer in the family, there's a disaster. Anyway. Yeah, so I tried to, even though all the, I just say friend, or like I refer to the GM, or I didn't even mention the surname, or even the offender, just the coach, or try not to. It's because it's not their story. Yeah, it's mine. So I just use my way of to describe them and keep it going. Yeah, keep myself going, and I think
Yeah, what advice would you give to your 40-year-old self who is kind of at the beginning stages of writing this memoir, now today, having launched this memoir into the world? What would you say to her?
I think I would still tell her to take up an MFA course. I think it's worthwhile. I think because the most important thing is you got critical encouragement. So you don't. Maybe you cannot show it to your mother, or and no, right? So you need to have a really professional advice. As writers, we know that feedback is very important, right? And I think to have a mentor or two, to give you different perspective. So associate yourself. I think like you did also in the writer's circle. I think that's really good, and just you need to keep it going, and you need to keep telling yourself that your story is worth writing and worth reading, and your story matters. Yeah.
So your memoir's worth reading. There's no doubt about that. Maybe now I know that through perseverance, you've achieved this. I think you're very brave, Sonia, to speak out about such a difficult subject. And I do feel, as a mother who's lost a daughter to sexual violence, that it's voices like yours we need to speak out, to tell people, victims, that they're not alone. And may I just give a very quick plug for a podcast? Because Sonia is on my podcast on the 22nd of March, and it's called Mending Lives. And she reads some of her beautiful poetry as well. 23rd of March, Mending Lives podcast.
Kind of following on from this idea of reading your fiction and poetry with a memoir. You said that you were writing the two simultaneously. Is that correct? You were writing poetry and memoir.
Yes.
How did one help the other? Because that's a very interesting question, I think, across how you think, how you write, how you try to retrieve the memories, and also how you try to give yourself that safe space.
Yeah.
So how do you switch between harness the particularities of writing fiction, writing memoir, writing prose, and writing poetry? How do you go back in between? How does it help?
Yeah, so I give you an example. The opening poem of my book is called "On a Desert Island All Alone." So I think that says it all. Like, I feel I was in that desert island, and so I kind of stepped back from the narratives and all the difficulties, and so I wrote this poem to tell myself that that it was okay to continue that, even though I was all alone. So to put it in words, in sentences, it felt manageable. So all the difficult feelings become condensed into these stanzas, and that I can just read out loud, rather than having all these troubling, screaming voices in my head. Because in the book I mentioned that it became so bad that I cut myself, or I stole my father's cigarettes, and I put the lit cigarette on my hands, and so and then because the pain, this kind of sharp pain can stop the screaming in my head, at least for a second or two. And so then later on, even that couldn't help, then I sort of thinking about jumping off. My weirdness also got the attention to my teacher, so my head teacher, she did notice, and so she did call for counsel, our school counselor, to arrange time for me. But because the counselor, unfortunately, she was just freshly out of school, so her master. So I didn't think that she really understand from an immigrant child, So after the first session, I actually, because it was so quiet at the end of the school day, I felt like, I just want to run up to the roof and jump off. Like, why bother? Because nobody can understand. But then after, as you can imagine, it's very hard to write that. Then I started to write Don't Cry Phoenix. Just tell myself, it's okay, there's rebirth at the end, or, just keep doing that to encourage myself. And so also using because in the Don't Cry Phoenix, I mentioned like the wind and so it's just also like this piece that I connect with myself, with nature, and with bigger background. So I felt like my troubles were smaller. Yeah, so I put myself into context. And when you see the ocean, and so I was very much alone. So I always went off to play weird places. So yeah, I can like feel the bigger space, and so make my and that. So I think in the book is a lot about ocean and mountain and yeah, the places I can breathe. So that way it helped me it kept me going.
I think one of the things you said to me, Sonia, once in our talks was that when things got too tough to describe in prose, you always had poetry to come back to.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
maybe that you said they're like two sisters, didn't you?
Oh,
Because you're a
yeah.
poet, and you said there are two sisters that are along
Yeah,
with you on
yeah.
the writing path.
Yeah, yeah, no, because I do have a very, we sort of separate, I mean, we gone our way, well, as we all do now, when we grow up as with the sister, like, once we were close, but later on maybe some issue, and then we kind of have our own families and stuff, so, but somehow I felt very close related to my younger sister, so we are like twins, so I always think of sisterhood, right? And solidarity. Yeah, so I felt like the two books, Don't Cry Phoenix and The Girl Who Dreamed, they are sisters who joined force to keep me going. Yeah.
Hi, so, hi Sonia. So, like we were talking about how part of your book has a section on Ipoh, right? Like where you go to Malaysia and it features heavily, and as someone who researches Malaysian literature, I was just interested in the connection to your story, and can you like share with us more about your time in Malaysia? What about this experience made it so important to feature in your memoir, and what is its role?
What I said to you was actually the Malaysian students that I met in Taiwan.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's Malaysian Student Union in the National University of Taiwan. They because the day I went away from home was the 1st of September 1990. So it was the opening. I mean, it's school starting day. So they had a counter in the Taoyuan airport, and after the two policemen helped me. They introduced me to the counter, and I met the vice president, who is Malaysian. And I went to their student center near the university, and they invited me to the meeting. And because it was, I need to be very careful about this. I know my publisher is a bit nervous about this, but no, okay. So. Oh, okay. That because there's a large event in 1989. So yes, and so we had a discussion with the Malaysian students because we both came. The Taiwanese students, they wanted to hear from us what our feelings about them. So they actually treat me like a grown up. I was not yet 16, but actually they asked for my opinion about it. So then afterwards, he told also introduced the chairman of the president of the club or the student association. His girlfriend is also Malaysian, so she looked after me. She took me into the student dormitory, inside Taida in the Taiwan National University, and I stayed with her for the first 6 months. And then they helped me to refer because they tried to get me back into school. They say, oh, you can start. But yeah, anyway, they tried to get me back, but then because maybe Taipei is the capital city, maybe a bit difficult. So they refer me to Taichung and Thailand. So all the way is through the Malaysian Student Union. So I'm very grateful for Malaysians.
I have one. So you've done poetry, you've done a memoir. What's next?
I do. I have another poetry collection which is in English. It's called Coming Home to Hong Kong, and then I also have a nonfiction, another nonfiction, personal essays collection. And then so the poetry collection. No, the essay collection is more about sort of looking back on my journey of writing this memoir, like the 10 years, how I talk about the books that influenced me to help shape my writing of this memoir. So I share all the books that mattered, and also I shared some incidents that I couldn't put in the book because it just wouldn't look good. So that is called Climbing the Writing Mountain. And then I also have one more that working on a short story collection. It's called 3-Inch Heaven. 3-Inch Heaven. Yeah, it's based on true Chinese women's lives and about their determination and resilience. So it's on other women's life, like my mother, my grandmother, my mother, my grandmother, and other contemporary Chinese women characters in both Hong Kong and in mainland China. Yeah. And I hope people will also interest in the talk. I'm saying even just one would be fine.
Thank you, Sonia, for sharing your story of how The Girl Who Dreamed came about, for your readings, for your tenacity, for your perseverance, for your bravery, for your courage, for your determination. Congratulations.
Thank you.